My wife cheated on me with my brother, and it destroyed my life. I'm Jeff, 31 years old. Life was simple, predictable even. My wife Claire and I had been married for 6 years. We met in college, hit it off immediately, and from that moment, I thought we were unbreakable. That's the funny thing about trust. You never really think it can be shattered until it is. It started with subtle signs, a missed dinner here, a distant conversation there, but I never imagined what was really going on behind the scenes. Not until I found out the hard way. It was a Friday night, and Claire had told me she'd be out with some friends. A girls' night, she called it. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? I trusted her completely. I sat at home, flipping through TV channels. Something didn't feel right. It wasn't jealousy or insecurity. It was silence. A silence that screamed at me louder than any noise could. Out of nowhere I had this gut feeling, kind of instinct that told me something was wrong. I tried shaking it off, convincing myself I was being paranoid. But the more I tried to ignore it, the stronger it got. I grabbed my keys and jacket, deciding to go for a drive to clear my head. But instead of driving around aimlessly, my car seemed to take me somewhere else. My brother Ethan's house. Ethan and I were close, at least we used to be. He's 3 years younger, always the more charismatic one, the one people gravitated toward. Growing up, we had our fights, but nothing major. That night, as I drove toward his house, I couldn't help but think about how distant he'd become recently. Our usual weekend hangouts had turned into quick texts and occasional catch-ups. I chalked it up to life getting in the way. Now, felt like there was something else. When I pulled up to his place, there was Claire's car in the driveway. My stomach dropped. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I stared at her car, trying to come up with some kind of explanation. But I couldn't. I got out of the car, feeling like I was moving through a dream. A nightmare, really. My heart was pounding in my chest as I walked up to the door. It was unlocked. I stepped inside. The living room was quiet, too quiet. I walked further in, and that's when I heard it. Voices, low, intimate whispers. I followed the sound, my feet moving without my permission, taking me closer to the truth I wasn't ready to face. When I reached the bedroom door, it was cracked open just enough for me to see them. Claire, my wife, in my brother's arms. My heart shattered in that moment. I froze, every part of me screaming to run, but I couldn't. I just stood there, watching as they kissed, as they laughed. It was casual, like they'd done this 1,000 times before. Ethan? Claire's voice was soft, affectionate, the way she used to speak to me. My stomach turned. Shh, relax. Jeff has no idea. Ethan responded, grinning as he ran his hand through her hair. That was it, I couldn't take it anymore. I pushed the door open, the sound of it crashing against the wall startling them both. They jumped apart, panic written all over their faces. Jeff, Claire gasped, her face paling as she scrambled off the bed. What the hell is this? I managed to choke out, my voice shaking with rage and disbelief. Ethan stood up, trying to come up with some excuse, but he couldn't find the words. Claire looked at me, her eyes wide with guilt. There was no hiding it now. I can explain, she stammered, but I wasn't interested in explanations. Explain, I shouted, the anger boiling over inside me. Explain what, Claire? How you've been screwing my brother behind my back? How long has this been going on? She flinched at my words, tears welling up in her eyes, but I didn't care. Betrayal was too deep. Ethan stepped forward, holding up his hands like that would calm me down. Jeff, man, listen. Shut up. I spat, glaring at him with a hatred I didn't know I was capable of. How could you do this to me? You're my brother. He lowered his head, unable to meet my eyes. Just happened. It just happened. I repeated, incredulous. This doesn't just happen, Ethan. You made a choice. Both of you did. Claire started sobbing, reaching out to me. Jeff, please, I love you. It was a mistake. Backed away from her touch, disgusted. Love me? You love me? You call this love? You destroyed everything. My heart was racing, my mind spinning. I couldn't breathe. The woman I'd built a life with, the person I trusted more than anyone, had betrayed me in the worst way possible. And with my own brother. I turned to leave, my hands trembling as I reached for the door. I needed to get out of there, to escape the suffocating weight of their betrayal. Jeff, please don't go, Claire begged, but her voice felt distant, like it was coming from somewhere far away. I didn't look back. I slammed the door behind me and stumbled out into the cold night air. My vision blurred as tears I'd been holding back finally fell. I leaned against my car, gripping the roof for support as I tried to steady my breathing. How had it come to this? How had my life crumbled in a matter of minutes? Claire, my wife, the woman I thought I'd grow old with, had torn my heart out. And Ethan, my own brother, the one person I thought I could count on. I felt sick, the betrayal cutting deeper with every second. I wanted to scream, to hit something, anything to make the pain stop. There was nothing. Just an empty, hollow ache that settled deep in my chest. I got in the car and drove. I didn't know where I was going, and I didn't care. I just needed to be far away from them. From everything. As I sped down the empty streets, one thought echoed in my mind, over and over again. My life was ruined, and I had no idea how to fix it. The drive home was a blur. My mind raced with a million thoughts, none of which made any sense. I wanted to confront them, but part of me was still hoping it was all a nightmare I could wake up from. When I finally pulled into the driveway, I could barely see through the tears streaming down my face. I walked into the house, feeling like a ghost in my own life. Claire and Ethan were still in the bedroom, but now the room was eerily quiet. I could hear muffled voices from behind the door, but the sound was distorted, as if coming from a great distance. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I had to face them. I had to hear them say it, even though I already knew the truth. I pushed open the door, and they were there, sitting on the edge of the bed. Claire's eyes were red from crying, and Ethan looked like he was about to be sick. "Jeff," Claire started, her voice trembling, I don't know what to say." "Don't bother," I said coldly. "I saw enough." Ethan stood up, looking uncomfortable. "Jeff, man, I'm really sorry. This wasn't supposed to happen." "Not supposed to happen?" I echoed, my voice rising. "What are you talking about? You're my brother, Ethan. You're supposed to have my back." Claire stood up too, her hands reaching out to me. "Jeff, please, we were going to tell you. It happened so fast." "Happened so fast?" I shouted. "How can you even try to justify this? You've been lying to me, betraying me." She tried to reach for me again, but I stepped back, anger and hurt making my movements sharp. "Don't touch me," I said. "Not after everything." Ethan took a deep breath, stepping between Claire and me. "Jeff, I know this is messed up. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. We were just caught up in something, and it got out of hand." Claire nodded vigorously, tears streaming down her face. "We made a mistake. I know that. I'm so sorry, but please, don't hate us." "Hate you?" I said, my voice breaking. "You think I could ever hate you more than I already do? This isn't about hate, it's about the fact that everything I thought I knew was a lie." Claire sank onto the bed, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "Jeff, please, we can work through this. We can." "We can't work through this," I cut her off. "You've crossed a line that can't be erased. The trust we had, the bond we shared, it's shattered. It's broken." I looked at Ethan, feeling the weight of my betrayal. "You were supposed to be my family. How could you do this to me?" Ethan looked down, guilt etched on his face. "I don't have an excuse. I'm sorry, Jeff. I never meant to hurt you like this." Claire looked up, her eyes pleading. "Jeff, I love you. I never wanted to hurt you. Please, can't we try to fix this?" "Fix this," I repeated, incredulous. "How do you fix something like this? How do you mend a heart that's been ripped apart? Do you think a few tears and apologies are going to change anything?" Claire's face crumpled, and she began to sob uncontrollably. "I don't know what to do. I'm so sorry, Jeff. I made a terrible mistake." I wanted to yell at her, to tell her how much she'd hurt me. The words got stuck in my throat. The pain was too raw, too deep. I felt like I was suffocating under the weight of their betrayal. Ethan reached out, his voice desperate. "Jeff, we're family. Can't we try to make this work? I know it's hard, but—" "No," I interrupted. "This isn't something you can just sweep under the rug. You've broken something that can't be fixed." I turned away from them, feeling the anger and hurt boiling inside me. I couldn't look at them anymore. I needed to get away from this house, from this place where everything had turned into a nightmare. I walked out the door, slamming it behind me. I could hear Claire's cries and Ethan's desperate pleas fading as I made my way to the car. My hands were shaking as I started the engine, the sound of it roaring to life almost as loud as the storm inside me. I drove aimlessly, my mind a jumbled mess of thoughts and emotions. Tried to focus on the road, but it felt like I was moving through a fog. The betrayal was too overwhelming, too consuming. Every street I passed, every familiar landmark seemed to mock me with reminders of the life I once had. Eventually, I found myself at a park, a place we used to go to on lazy weekends. I parked the car and sat there, staring at the empty swings and the playground where we had once laughed together. Felt like a lifetime ago. Got out of the car and walked to the swings, sitting down heavily. Cool night air did nothing to soothe the burning in my chest. I felt lost, like a piece of my soul had been ripped away, leaving a hollow space that couldn't be filled. I looked up at the stars, searching for answers that weren't there. How could they have done this? How could they betray me like this? The questions kept swirling in my mind with no answers in sight. The pain was relentless, constant ache that refused to go away. I wanted to scream, to let the world know how much I was hurting. The silence of the park seemed to swallow my cries. As the night wore on, I felt a cold numbness settling over me. I couldn't cry anymore. I couldn't even feel the anger I'd had just hours before. All that was left was a deep, empty void that seemed to stretch out endlessly. The trust I had placed in Claire and Ethan was gone, shattered beyond repair. The bonds of family, of love, had been torn apart, and all that was left was the painful realization that the life I thought I knew was irreparably broken. I stayed there for hours, unable to move, unable to find comfort. The world around me seemed distant and unimportant. All that mattered was the emptiness inside me. Crushing weight of betrayal that I would have to carry with me, no matter where I went. Eventually, I got back in the car and drove home. Though I wasn't sure why, the house, the place where so many memories had been made, now felt like a cage, prison of my own making. As I walked through the front door, I knew one thing for certain. Things would never be the same. Trust, the love, the family bonds, they were all gone, leaving behind only the echoes of what once was. It's been weeks since I found out about Claire and Ethan. Weeks that have blurred together into a continuous haze of pain and numbness. My life has turned into a void, a place where nothing feels real and everything seems meaningless. I've been isolating myself from everyone. My phone sits untouched on the kitchen counter, filled with messages I can't bring myself to read. Friends and family have reached out, concerned and offering support, but their words fall on deaf ears. I don't want their pity. I don't want their advice. I don't want anything that reminds me of the life I used to have. The house feels empty now. It's strange how a place that was once filled with laughter and love can become a prison. I wander from room to room, feeling like a ghost in my own home. The walls seem to close in on me, suffocating me with memories of Claire and me, the life we shared. I see her face in every corner, hear her voice in every whisper of the wind. I've stopped taking care of myself. The mirror in the bathroom reflects a person I barely recognize. My once neatly kept beard is now scruffy, my clothes are stained, and my eyes are hollow and tired. I can't remember the last time I slept well, or even the last time I cared about my appearance. Every morning is a struggle to get out of bed, and every night is a battle to find some semblance of peace. The days blend together in a monotonous loop of despair. I spend hours staring at the television, though I rarely watch anything. I sit in silence, lost in my own thoughts, my mind a never-ending spiral of self-pity and regret. I've tried to work, but my job has become meaningless. I can't focus, can't find any motivation. It feels like everything I once cared about has slipped through my fingers. I remember the day Claire and Ethan first came to my house, years ago. We were so happy, so full of hope. I used to think that happiness was a given, that it would last forever. Now, it feels like a cruel joke. The happiness we once shared is gone, replaced by an unending darkness that follows me wherever I go. I find myself replaying the same moments over and over in my head. The way Claire's eyes looked when she saw me standing in the doorway. The look of shame on Ethan's face. I keep asking myself if there was something I missed. There was something I could have done differently. But the answers elude me, and all I'm left with is a gnawing sense of helplessness. I've tried to reach out to Claire, but she doesn't answer. I left countless messages, begging for some kind of closure, some kind of explanation. But all I get are empty echoes. It's like she's vanished from my life completely, leaving me with nothing but the ghost of our past. I've started drinking more. It started with a drink or two in the evenings, but now it's become a routine. I keep a bottle of whiskey hidden in the back of the cupboard, and I drink until I can't feel anything. It's a temporary escape, a way to numb the pain, but it never lasts. Darkness always comes creeping back, more oppressive than before. There are nights when I lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, unable to shut off my thoughts. I think about the future, or rather the lack of one. I can't see a way forward, a path out of this darkness. It's like I'm trapped in a never-ending tunnel with no light at the end. I feel lost and hopeless, as if I've lost my sense of self. There was a time when I felt like I had purpose. I used to have dreams and ambitions, things I wanted to achieve. But now those dreams feel distant and unattainable. I can't find the energy to care about anything. The world outside seems to continue spinning, but I feel frozen in time, unable to move forward. I don't talk to anyone anymore. I've pushed everyone away, including my closest friends. I don't have the strength to explain what happened, relive the pain of betrayal. It's easier to stay silent, to wallow in my own misery. I've become a recluse, hiding away from the world, from the people who might actually care. Sometimes, I wonder if this is what it feels like to lose your mind. Constant ache in my chest, the crushing weight of loneliness, it's more than I can bear. I'm caught in a cycle of self-destruction, unable to find a way out. I'm sinking deeper and deeper into the abyss, and I don't know how to pull myself back up. The nights are the hardest. When the darkness falls, my thoughts become more intense, more tormenting. I lie in bed, my mind racing, and I can't escape the memories. I think about the future that will never be, the life I will never have. It's a relentless torment, constant reminder of what I've lost. I've stopped caring about everything. The little things that used to bring me joy, going for a walk, reading a book, talking to friends, mean nothing now. I'm numb to everything. My emotions dulled by the constant barrage of pain. It's like I'm living in a fog, unable to find my way out. There are moments when I wish I could just disappear, to escape the endless cycle of suffering. I think about the people I've pushed away, friends who tried to help. I wonder if they understand what it's like to be trapped in this darkness. I feel so completely alone. The only comfort I find is in the solitude. It's a strange comfort, a way to hide from the world and its expectations. I can be alone with my thoughts without the need to pretend and explain. But it's also a prison, keeping me isolated and detached from the life I once knew. The days stretch on, each one blending into the next, and I'm left with the haunting realization that I don't know how to escape this darkness. I'm lost in my own despair, unable to find a way forward. The pain is all-consuming, and I don't know how to break free. So I continue to drift, floating through the days and nights, consumed by the darkness that surrounds me. I'm adrift, lost, and broken. And as much as I wish for a way out, I can't seem to find it. I'm trapped in this cycle of despair, and I don't know how to escape. It's been nearly 2 months since the world I knew fell apart. The void left by Claire and Ethan's betrayal has consumed every aspect of my life. I've been spiraling deeper into self-destruction, pushing away anyone who tries to pull me back from the edge. I've stopped going to work altogether. My boss has called several times, but I can't bring myself to answer. I'm too far gone, too entrenched in my own misery to even attempt to explain what happened. Days blend together in a haze of alcohol and isolation. One evening, as I sat slouched on the couch with a half-empty bottle of whiskey beside me, the doorbell rang. I hadn't answered the door in weeks. Something about this visit felt different. Reluctantly, I dragged myself to the door and opened it to find my parents standing there, their faces etched with concern. "Jeff," my mother said, her voice breaking, "we've been worried sick about you." My father stood beside her, his face a mask of sadness. "Son, we know things have been tough, but you need to talk to us. We're here to help." I looked at them, feeling a wave of guilt wash over me. "I don't need your help," I muttered, trying to close the door. "I just want to be left alone." My mother placed her hand on the door, stopping me. "Jeff, please. We're your family. We want to support you. We want to be here for you." I couldn't look them in the eye. I felt ashamed of the state I was in, broken man I'd become. You don't understand, I said. You don't know what it's like. My father spoke up, his voice firm but gentle. We may not fully understand, but we want to. We care about you, Jeff. We've seen how much you're suffering, and we just want to help. I finally stepped aside, letting them in. They looked around the house, taking in the mess and the bottles of liquor scattered about. My mother's eyes filled with tears as she took in the disarray. This isn't you, she said softly. You've always been such a strong person. We want to help you find your way back. I sat down heavily on the couch, feeling the weight of their concern. I don't even know where to start, I admitted. I feel like I'm drowning, and I don't know how to get out. My father sat beside me, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. It's okay to feel lost, but pushing everyone away and isolating yourself isn't going to help. You need to talk to someone. Get professional help. I shook my head, feeling a surge of anger. I don't need therapy. I don't need someone to tell me how to feel. I just need to be left alone. My mother sat beside me, her voice pleading. Jeff, please. We want to help you. You're not alone in this. We love you, and we're worried about you. I looked at them, seeing the genuine concern in their eyes. I don't want to be a burden, I said quietly. I don't want anyone to see me like this. My father sighed, frustration evident in his voice. You're not a burden. You're our son. We want to support you through this, but you have to let us. You have to accept that you need help. I clenched my fists, feeling overwhelmed. I can't do this, I said. I don't have the strength. I don't know how to move on. My mother reached out and gently took my hand. It's okay to feel this way. It's okay to not have all the answers. But you don't have to go through this alone. We're here for you, and we want to help you find a way forward. I looked at them, seeing the love and concern in their eyes. For the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. But it was quickly overshadowed by the fear and despair that had taken over my life. I don't know if I can, I admitted, tears welling up in my eyes. I don't know if I can ever be okay again. My father squeezed my shoulder reassuringly. It's going to be hard, Jeff. Recovery takes time, but taking the first step, accepting help, is the most important part. I nodded slowly, feeling a pang of guilt for the way I had shut them out. I'll try, I said softly. I'll try to get help. My parents smiled, a mixture of relief and hope on their faces. That's all we ask. My mother said, her voice filled with warmth. We'll be with you every step of the way. The days that followed were a struggle. I reluctantly agreed to see a therapist, though I went in with a heavy heart and a deep sense of skepticism. The sessions were difficult, dredging up painful memories and forcing me to confront my emotions. I found myself in a small, sterile office, sitting across from a therapist who looked at me with compassionate eyes. Jeff, she said gently, I know this is hard, but talking about what you're going through is a crucial part of healing. I stared at the floor, feeling a mix of anger and shame. I don't know if I can do this, I said. I feel so lost, so broken. She nodded understandingly. It's okay to feel that way. Healing is a process, and it's not going to happen overnight, but you're taking a step in the right direction by reaching out for help. I didn't have much to say during that first session. I was still wrapped in my own cocoon of despair, struggling to open up. But there was a small part of me that felt a flicker of hope, a glimmer of possibility that things might get better. My parents continued to support me, checking in regularly and offering encouragement. They visited often, bringing small gestures of care, homemade meals, kind words, and just their presence. It was comforting, though I still found it difficult to fully embrace their support. There were moments when I wanted to retreat back into my shell, to shut everyone out again. The pain was overwhelming, and the thought of facing it was almost unbearable. But I knew I couldn't continue down this path of self-destruction. I had to try, even if it was just a small effort. As I worked through the therapy sessions, I began to see glimpses of light through the darkness. It was a long and painful journey, but there was a small part of me that began to believe in the possibility of healing. I was still struggling, still lost in many ways, but I was taking the first steps toward finding my way back. It was a long road ahead, filled with uncertainty and struggle. For the first time in a while, I felt a faint sense of hope. I wasn't alone in this journey, and with the support of my family and the help of professionals, I began to understand that healing was possible, even if it seemed distant and elusive. As I continued to confront my pain and work toward recovery, I knew it would be a challenging and ongoing process. But I was starting to believe that, with time and effort, I could find my way out of the darkness and begin to rebuild my life. It's been months since I first faced the reality of Claire and Ethan's betrayal. The days have blended into a continuous blur of darkness and despair. I've tried to grasp at fleeting glimpses of hope to find a reason to keep going, but each attempt only seems to drag me deeper into the abyss. Now I find myself at a point where I'm ready to fully surrender to the void. The house, once a home filled with laughter and love, now feels like a mausoleum. The rooms are cluttered with remnants of a life that no longer feels real. I walk through the spaces, each one a haunting reminder of what has been lost. The walls seem to close in on me, and the silence is deafening. I can no longer find comfort in the memories. They have become ghosts that torment me. I've stopped going out, stopped seeing people. The outside world seems foreign, a place that has moved on while I remain trapped in my own personal hell. My isolation has become a fortress, a way to shield myself from the overwhelming pain of existence. I no longer answer the phone, no longer respond to messages. I've become a recluse, hiding away from the world and from myself. The alcohol has become my constant companion. I drink to forget, to numb the relentless ache that seems to consume every part of me. The bottle is always within reach, a dark solace in a world where nothing feels right. I've lost count of the days spent in a haze of inebriation, of the nights spent in a state of drunken stupor. It's a temporary escape, but it only deepens the emptiness inside me. The therapy sessions, the support from my family, they all feel meaningless now. I've tried to engage, to reach out, but it all feels like an exercise in futility. Pain is too great, the sense of betrayal too deep. No amount of talking, no amount of care, seems capable of bridging the chasm that has opened up in my soul. One evening, as I sit on the couch with a nearly empty bottle of whiskey beside me, I receive a call from my mother. I can see her name flashing on the screen, but I don't answer. I know she's worried, that she's trying to reach out and offer support, but I can't bring myself to engage. The thought of talking, of explaining how I feel, feels like an insurmountable task. Instead, I sit in silence, staring at the flickering light of the television. I don't even know what's on the screen. It's just a distraction, way to pass the time as I spiral further into my own despair. The world outside continues to move, to evolve, while I remain trapped in a never-ending cycle of pain and hopelessness. There are nights when I lie in bed, unable to sleep, consumed by the darkness that has taken over my life. The ceiling above me seems to close in, pressing down on me with the weight of my own misery. I think about the future, or rather, the lack of one. I can't see a way out, path forward. The thought of recovery, of redemption, feels like a cruel joke. I've started to avoid mirrors. I don't want to see the reflection of the person I've become, the hollow eyes, the gaunt face. I don't want to confront the reality of my own destruction. It's easier to pretend that I'm invisible, that I don't exist, than to face the truth of what I've allowed myself to become. In conversations with my therapist, I've been silent, withdrawn. I stopped engaging in the sessions, stopped putting any effort into the recovery process. It feels pointless, like trying to fix a shattered glass with tape. The more I talk, the more I realize that there's no way back, no way to repair the damage that's been done. I've begun to see the darkness as a constant companion, an inescapable part of my existence. I've stopped fighting it, stopped trying to escape. Instead, I've surrendered to it, allowing it to consume me completely. It feels like a form of acceptance, a way to embrace the abyss that has become my reality. The days are a blur of monotony, punctuated only by the occasional drink and the ceaseless cycle of self-loathing. I find no pleasure in anything, no solace in the things that used to bring me joy. The world outside feels like a distant memory, a place that no longer holds any meaning for me. Sometimes, I think about the people I've pushed away, friends who reached out, family who tried to help. I wonder if they understand the depth of my despair, the extent of my misery. But even if they do, it no longer matters. I've reached a point where I can no longer find the will to care, to engage. As I sit alone in the darkened living room, the silence is both comforting and suffocating. The walls seem to close in on me, the darkness wrapping around me like a shroud. I feel like I'm at the edge of a precipice, looking down into an endless void. There's no hope left, no belief in a better future. I've accepted that this is my life now, a life defined by pain and emptiness. The thought of ending it all crosses my mind more frequently now. It's a seductive idea, a way to escape the relentless torment that seems to define my existence. But even as I entertain the thought, a part of me hesitates, clinging to the faintest glimmer of hope that there might be something more, something beyond this darkness. For now, though, I remain in the abyss, fully immersed in the misery that has become my reality. I've abandoned all hope of redemption or recovery. The darkness is my companion, my refuge, and my prison. I've surrendered to it completely, embracing the abyss that has swallowed my life. And in this acceptance, I find a strange, perverse sense of peace, even as I drown in the depths of despair. In the end, it feels like the only choice I have left, to accept the darkness and let it consume me entirely. The struggle has become too great, pain too overwhelming. I've given up on finding a way out, on seeking redemption. All that remains is the abyss, and I am its willing prisoner.